Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
You can work with somebody a long time and you don't know them, not because you don't want to, it's because of timing. And in the radio business, I always like to say that 1 second either way is either, too tight or you've completely missed it. And in the news business, one of the more, if not the most respected person in the news game on the radio right now is the KTBB morning anchor. Her name is Melissa Kiser. Hi, Melissa.
Wow. Hi there, Chuck. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll work out a settlement later.
But I take cash and MasterCard.
Gift cards.
But
Jersey Mike's.
Yeah. No, we like to call it the coffee economy here too. Mm-hmm. Because right now, when people say, "Are you monetizing it?" Somewhat.
In beans.
I'm holding coffee, yes.
Yes.
But, and I guess what I was alluding to is you do the early mornings.
Yes, and I have since day one.
You started in mornings?
I did start in
That's
mornings,
amazing,
yes.
Melissa.
I started as an intern 20 years ago in November. So November will be my 20.
That was going to be my question because I knew it was over 15 and I thought close to 20.
Yes.
This has to be an extraordinary story because an intern does not go there, I don't think. So what was your story? How did you get there?
So I was taking a radio television course at TJC. And Roger Gray came over to the class to do a presentation. And he, at the end of the class, said, "Anyone want to come over and do an internship? It's unpaid, and it is at 4:00 in the morning." And I was the only one who raised my hand. And part of his presentation, he said, "My advice for you, if you're trying to get into radio, don't say no. If someone asks you to do something, do it. If you get an opportunity, say yes." And so that was my first test,
Sure.
Come over, do a free internship. And I said, absolutely, I'll do it. And that's how I got my foot in the door.
Excellent.
Yes.
And you've demonstrated time and time again. And, we're in a business where especially, as the years have gone by and it's contracted, not in our house because being that KTBB is family owned, we're the unicorn in this market. We
Yes.
truly are. Mm-hmm. And, with the Grim Reaper visiting, they just did, hitting our brothers and sisters at Alpha Media and, sweeping the Midwest and everything. But yeah, it's unusual to have as many people as we have. But I've learned, because I'm not a news person. I was a guy that 20 years ago, my wife would say, "You need to do news." And I was like, "Are you kidding?" I play George Strait records. You're insane. And when I worked production at KTBB, my first tour, I've been there maybe 6-7 months, and Mr. Gleiser said, "You should do news." And before I even said any yes or no, he said, "If you can jock, you can do news." And I said, "Well, okay." And the only thing I did over the years, I watched you, studied you, and I studied John Sims. I could ask questions, and sometimes I was shy about asking questions, but I would just watch, and I would go, this is how they put the heading in for this. This is how they do lead-ins. Okay, the editing's the same. I can edit. So, you guys were my mentors as far as how to do things right, because it's real. We have an intern now. Well, Jared's not an intern, is he?
We hired Jared. Can you believe it?
We hired Jared.
Yes, he's
Can
hired.
you believe it?
Yes,
I'm
we
kidding.
hire interns other than myself.
Well, I mean, he was on 92.1 doing sports, and then he came over with us after John Sims passed and to do news. And I told him one night, because we had probably a good 6 months where every time after we would get done at night, it'd be like 60 seconds. Good stuff. We got to watch this. Great stuff. And I remember one time he said, "Well, can I change your lead?" And I said, "Sure. Just don't change the story." And he had something where the story changed. And I said, "Remember, every word counts, whether it's in the lead in, whether it's the story." So, especially the way we do it, or when I do it, if I'm looking at a story at 1 PM, I have to ask myself, does this hold up
Yes.
at 5?
Yes.
I remember John would tell me, I've heard it from you, stay away from weather stories, because why? Well, the weather changes.
Yes. Well, and you definitely want to get it right. You're not worried about scooping other stations.
No.
You know, we want to have some heart and we want to show some tenderness. I mean, these are people's lives that we deal with. And I try to never forget that. You know, I think, wow, what if this was me and I was listening to this on the radio? What if this was my family or something to that effect? It's hard to be in the business and not just read lines off of paper. But I like to think of it as, what if this was me and what if my mom was listening to this? And she does listen to us, you know, and
Sure.
she'll text me and let me know.
It's
good
you
to have a
have
critic.
that too.
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes.
I will get texts sometimes in the afternoon from Rosanna, and it will be, you know, a story that's going on. And sometimes she's scooping. Okay, fine. Thanks, hon.
We do need her in the newsroom, so just a shout out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And she would probably say, well, can I voice the story?
Yes.
You were talking about the fun part. You know, it's obvious that you and your broadcast partner, Jeff Rohr, 5 years, 6 years?
I'm not good with numbers, Chuck, so
It's a long time.
it's been a while.
And I know that you all have fun. And I think, and that's the other thing too, you know, when I say to friends, my music radio buddies, you know, been doing news, when I say, you can have fun doing news.
Yes.
Newsrooms are fun. You know, they're sometimes intense, but, you know, you still have to sit there and you can't sit there and do game face the whole day or you will just go insane. But, and there's a couple built-in things that you guys do that I think are just wonderfully funny. The bottom of the hour news, or not the bottom of the hour.
It's the other side of the news.
Thank you.
That's kind of where you can let your personality out a little bit. And that's what I've tried to incorporate a little bit and find the wildest stories on the planet. And that's what I like to showcase.
So if you were to sit there, you know, and I was talking about, you know, stories that have different shadings and everything, what do you think is the best story? Like in the last year, it seems like the last couple of years, and I still find it, like when I was mentioning Uvalde, that, you know, it still keeps popping up. It still keeps going and it's still unfortunate. But is there any other stories that like stick in your mind that, you know, to me, Uvalde was this gasp-worthy thing that as it broke, you're seeing things going, you go, gee, you know, but, you know, any other things besides that maybe?
Oh, to be honest with you, Chuck, yes, I'm sure there are a million of them.
Or is it you're handling at the moment and you just go on?
Exactly. I try not to internalize all of this stuff because what would that do to you if you did? I mean, we deal with a lot of really tragic stories. There's some good stories, but that's really, you know, not the news. You don't turn on the news and find all the fluffy, sunshiny, rainbowy stories. It's really what's going on. A lot of shootings happening, attacks. But I will say this, I am attracted to the stories that have to do with naked people that have been drinking that have stolen a golf cart.
Yeah, I mean, humor, right?
Humor. I like the humor aspect of it, yes.
Yes.
If you talk about things, so-and-so was naked on a golf cart, that tends to loosen the room up pretty quick.
They might have had a drink or two. We don't know.
Well, let me ask you something. So, I mean, I've had a career where I've done a lot of different things. You've been a news person, and by the way, in this changing radio landscape, the person doing the same job for 20 years is an oddity. I mean,
remarkable.
It just is. And it speaks to your talent too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a very nice compliment. Thank you so much. I think it has to do with me showing up every day. So if you just show up every day on time and do the job that was presented to you.
That matters too, though, Melissa.
does.
Do you know how many people don't do that?
I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
You've seen it, right?
I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it. But, you know, I'm just really, I think I'm lucky. Thank you for the talent compliment. I do appreciate that. I don't see myself that way. I see myself as being consistent. And I think that part is really appreciated by my boss.
But you know what? There's a ton to say about that. I remember in another market, I was talking to somebody and they said, you really work hard and that's appreciated. And I said, well, why wouldn't I? I mean, this is something to where, you know, and this is way past, like 1997 to me represented when radio landscape changes. This is when Golf Star starts taking over and the edict goes down. Nights, overnights, weekenders, you guys are gone. And so, I've said this before, that there's not a lot of room for, you know, your head case or your prima donna. You know, you're just, you know, it's like, you know, we get birthday bagels, pizza, or donuts on our birthdays. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah,
excellent.
that is cool. And otherwise, it's just check your ego at the door, man. You were just another bozo on the bus, just like the rest of us.
No kidding. The concept we had the other day, Jared and I were talking about this, and we thought, well, would it be possible to maybe put together a profile of an employee, back it up with maybe a fake birth certificate, give it to Meredith so we could get more pizza? Do you think that would be a concept? Jared and I were talking about that. Not that we have the time that we're wasting time, but we were
Off
talking
the clock,
about
Chuck. Off the clock.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good off the clock. You guys have some really good ideas. I think maybe we should just get a pizza company to sponsor us and just send us free pizzas every
like
week.
that
Would
plan.
be good. Yeah,
That
that might
would-
be easier and within the limits of the law.
We do left turns here a little bit. If you weren't doing news, I mean, have you ever thought to yourself, I would like to be the midday jock on like an alternative rock station or something?
Now, honestly, when I got into this, and this was not a dream of mine to be in radio. Now, just like Mandee, I grew up listening to the radio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a heavy metal all the way, hair bands all day, all night. And I did think about being a rock and roll DJ. I want the perks that go along with it. I want to be backstage. I want to be in the front of the stage introducing the band. But
You want
really,
the swag.
that was like a childhood pipe dream, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. I never wanted to do this, but I was kind of floundering around a little bit. And it was my older brother who was listening to a station in Shreveport and said, you should do radio. I think you'd be really good at radio. And that's when I started picking up classes at TJC. And now back then they were adding television and radio classes because they didn't have a really strong broadcast or any kind of broadcasting type of class or.
So they didn't have like the campus station or anything?
No,
Yeah,
they did
okay,
not. No,
okay,
they did not.
okay.
So I was in the first radio television class that they had to offer. But it was because my brother said, you should try to do this. Now, I tried to do radiology. I'm not a good student. I am not a good study. I have never been a good student. I did not win a presidential scholarship.
I forgot that.
Yes. When I was listening
Nerd.
to that,
I'm such a nerd.
Not a nerd. No, ambitious and well done to you. But that is not my story at all. I was a terrible, terrible student. Had no idea where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. Just kind of flip flopping around.
I was that guy
Yeah.
growing up. If you say the word test to me,
Yes.
I will break out in meat sweats.
Panic. Yes.
I just can't. I won't. I've been in situations where I've looked at people and I said, look, I can do your job, but I'm not taking your test. Come on now.
I'll take the test. I'll fail, but then I'll talk my way into a passing grade.
Which is why you're in radio.
Hello. I guess. Yeah.
You talked your way into it.
Yeah, I did. I did talk my way into it. Yes, luckily. If I wasn't doing radio, I think what I would really like to do is interior design. I love to decorate. I like to put stuff together. I like to take a space and just see what we can do with it.
I've seen some of your stuff on Facebook, and it's really, really creative.
Thank you. When COVID hit, and we were all in quarantine, which we were still going to work, and so we weren't technically quarantined, but then you'd go home and you can't just run out and go shopping or whatever. And so I just started looking around the house and taking old furniture and thought, well, I'm going to repurpose this, and just kind of started putting wallpaper on furniture, and it turned out really
cool.
well, and just rearranged the whole house. So yeah, I had a little too much time on my hands, but it really tapped into something.
My dad was one of these people that could take, furniture apart, redo it, resand it, whatever. I, however, I've never had that talent. My wife is the one that can look at something and go, that would be good if we did this, 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 and this. And I go, okay. And I tell people, I think I can do a radio station, but I'm really, really useless. I can't. I just can't. I can't.
I love how you compliment yourself, Chuck. It is outstanding.
The self-deprecating humor is not lost on him.
No, not at all.
You once told me this a couple of weeks ago about, I forget what it was. I think it was, you said something. It was like, hey, good job on the web this week. And of course, I trotted out like 5 minutes of something. You said, thank you is usually what people say that are normal.
It's true, but I'm the same way. If someone compliments me, I think, okay, I need to attack myself and let them know that this compliment is not deserved. It's always been that way.
Well,
but before we move, what's the crafting skill level over here, Mandee? How
my
are we?
crafting
Yes,
skill?
how are we?
I'm not a strong crafter, but I love to be creative.
Okay.
I very much appreciate other people's crafting skills and their ability to do it. I mean, I did put this room sort of together.
This is nice.
With the help of my other podcast partner, Ashley Fisher, who's a photographer.
Okay.
So she has kind of that eye for design. And I do have I have a great appreciation for art. I took, when I was at KC, so I wasn't at TJC, I was at KC. I didn't take radio or television because I was already stumbled into the background of that, but I was in journalism and took photography classes. And so I sort of picked up on some elements of visual art, and I have a great appreciation for it, but I'm not necessarily skilled at doing it myself.
Okay.
Is that
I do. That makes sense.
translate?
Yes, I get
Yeah.
it. Yes.
So I have lots of friends that are very creative. I have friends that are artists and photographers, and I'm attracted to that, but I don't necessarily practice it.
I get it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I would like to. I don't have very much confidence in my skill level.
Maybe we just need to lock you in a room and you could figure it out. I think you could tap into something.
probably could.
I know you could.
I probably could.
I know you could.
Thank you for asking.
We've run in the same circles for a little while, except we're just kind of on the outskirts of meeting each other.
Yes.
You know my sister, Kristen.
Yes.
And you guys,
She's a remarkable woman.
Okay. Did you go to school together or to remind me?
No, we got connected through our mutual friend, Christina.
Christina. Gotcha. Okay.
I
good.
grew up in White Oak, and I think they were at White House.
Yes.
Yes, but about the same age. So I graduated in 02. I think they were 03, 04.
04.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So about the same. And then when I got to Tyler in 2005, it took me a little while to find friends my age because, like you, I said yes to everything in radio for a long time. I think that's really great advice for anybody who's new. You sometimes won't get paid for a while, but if you say yes, you're going to have more opportunities. I maybe yesed myself to death a little bit for a while, but all my peers, like from school, were still in college. So my work peers were 10 to 20 years older than me. So it took me a little while to sort of find people my age. It took me probably a good 6 years before I found Christina and some of my other friend group. Actually, we were talking about on the mobile DJ gig story, I DJ'd a party for free. I donated my time to Heart of Tyler. And I started getting involved with that organization, which is how I met Christina.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Christina is who you want to meet if you're trying to make
amazing.
friends.
She's the best friends. Oh my gosh. I was so fortunate. She invited me to go on a trip ahead of her wedding, which is how I really got to know Kristen.
Yes.
And Allison and a couple of other girls. And I cried because they were the most welcoming, genuine, precious women that I had met, because oftentimes I would run into mean girls.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's a real thing. People joke about it, but it's a real thing. And these women, I mean, I'm going to cry again. They were so kind and welcoming, and they just treated me like I had been in their friend group for 20 years.
Yes.
It was incredible.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't know if Kristen ever shared that with you, but I got super emotional on that trip.
No, she didn't. And she wouldn't.
She's so sweet.
Yeah, she's a sweet girl.
And overcome so much.
She has. She's doing great. She is doing great. So, yes. Well, that's good. It's so interesting how, you know, in this little tiny town of Tyler, you know, we're all connected in one way or another, it seems like.
It seems like, and over the years when I've talked to both of you, I had this in my head that you two had known each other a little bit. So I was surprised that, you know.
I think we've commented on each other's Facebook and encouraged each other for years.
so.
I think we took it. We were all ended up at the same nail salon in Dallas.
Yes.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Kristen's
for
birthday.
Kristen's birthday.
Yes.
Yes. I forgot about that.
So we happened to be getting our toes done at the same time, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know if you feel this way, but I always have. When I see other women doing what I do in the same market, I want to see them succeed.
Absolutely.
There's so few of us.
I respect it so much.
Agreed. And not that I don't love the men that I work with, because I do. And I have so much respect and admiration. Clearly, or I wouldn't be doing a podcast with Chuck, right?
Of course not.
Right. I mean, we're family at this point. But I think there's so few women here that are in the business that we maybe have experiences that men don't have.
Yes.
And so knowing that, even if we don't know each other well, I feel like there's kind of an established camaraderie of shared experience.
Admiration from afar and also rooting from afar as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
but
that.
Good. Now we get the face-to-face root fest.
Really be in each other's corner.
That's right. Always. Yep. Very good.
Or Chuck, you look stunned.
No, I'm watching. I'm watching you admire each other and talking, and that's fine.
I do have a fascination for other people in the same business. I really just do, because there are certain stairs that you have to climb to get where you are. And I think all of us being familiar with those stairs, gives you an appreciation for what we all do. I will always root for you guys, always.
Well,
Yeah,
the
same.
other thing too is that, most of us that have done this, we've done other things. I mean, like I said, you're a rarity because even a 20-year person is going to have things where they've been impacted, of course, because of the fact that we're in this kind of almost, protective zone with the ATW media. And we're lucky for that because being it's a family operation, if it wasn't, it would be two people there. Seriously.
Yeah.
Or one.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
It would
one.
just,
One
no,
person running the board, maybe.
You would have a regional news person. I have a friend at WHO in Des Moines. She's news director, but in the morning she does news for 6 stations.
Oh my!
In the Midwest, and that's just crazy. I don't know how they get quality. I mean,
Is she researching all of those stories too, or is she just no, forgive me, I'm not trying
I
to
don't
put
know.
her down at
No,
all.
I
No,
don't-
but that
no,
seems
I
like an
don't
impossible
know.
Oh,
task.
That does seem like an
knowing
impossible
Wendy
task.
probably because
Yeah.
she's one of these people that
That's
she worked,
impressive.
She worked with WCCO in Minneapolis. She had a talk show there.
And I know they're not paying her 6 salaries worth of
No
income, which just
no. So-
breaks my heart because she probably deserves it.
Oh God, yes, and and the news business anyway. It's like I tell friends, and you've heard me say this. It's not for the faint of heart. It's just you have to have your game going. You have to sit there and be aware. There's a scene in the movie Stand By Me. You ever see Stand By Me?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
A
so
staple.
it's remember train. And
Yes.
so they're putting their hand on the track. You have to be able to do that. Have your hand on the track and feel things. I mean, and I've gotten better with that over the last year and a half because you have to. And like employees, we've had to learn, unfortunately, a couple of times over the years to move and to fill gaps and to bring our game up and to help other people bring their game up. It's like, folks like yourself, whether it was like actively teaching, things where I would just watch you do your work and I go, oh, this is how it's done. And even now, there's times, I'll walk in and go, well, I have a question about the web or this story or this picture is like this. Is this how you do this?
But I think I admire a person who can ask questions. I really do.
And
if you have a question, please ask it. And I'm the same way. I have to know things. If I try to navigate this on my own and get it wrong,
Yes. No.
if I drag you into it, Chuck, then there are 2 people to blame, possibly.
Yes, and it gets disastrous. And when I was a younger broadcaster, one of my big regrets is I wouldn't ask the question because I didn't want to feel stupid.
Yes.
As I've gotten older, the last 20 years of my career have been, ask questions. Oh, there's 9 feet of water. We would like you to dive in it. Great. Give me the life preserver and I'll dive in and figure this thing out.
Well, either ask the question or be ready to pick up the phone when it rings, and you can answer to the person on the other end of that line.
Whenever I've
not
had
fun.
I've had a new assignment where Mr. Gleiser would say, well, doing this or that, I go, well, you realize things are going to be banged around a bit the first day. Yeah, I know. Okay. And so, that's how it is.
I think at a certain point after you've been somewhere for a little bit of time and you can kind of like settle in and be comfortable, even with your boss, and be comfortable, still have that respect level, but still have the relationship where you're not scared of people. And
Yeah.
when I first started there, I was scared of everyone because I didn't know anything. I was coming in brand new. I was an intern. I was not on the air. I was scared of being on the air. I just didn't even know what was going to happen. So I would gather the news for the personalities that were on the air. And at that time, John Sims was doing the morning show
Oh,
with Mike Edwards.
okay.
And so I would gather the news for John for him to take to the airwaves and do the morning show with the news that I presented
Sure.
him. So eventually over time, I was just thrown, and really you're just kind of like throw the baby in the water and let it swim. And that's really has been my experience as far as getting on the air. Throw her in the water and see what happens.
Yes.
What was that first show like for you?
It was not great.
And it was mornings.
It was mornings. It was not great. But KTBB and Mr. Gleiser really showed me a lot of grace because growing up in public, as you know, people like to criticize, and,
Oh,
and they
yes.
do. And so we would get phone calls, and sometimes I would take these phone calls of people who did not like that woman on the air.
Really? They would tell you that?
Absolutely. And they don't know that I'm the woman.
Oh, they
that
didn't
they're-
know that.
No,
Okay.
I'm not sure how they missed it. But anyway, they want to get their complaint out. And so they're not paying attention. But Mr. Gleiser showed me the grace, and I'm learning, and he saw that, and maybe he saw some potential in me, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I thought after that first phone call, I was like, well, pack your bags, that's it. Bye guys, it was good work. I always keep like an empty box by my desk, just ready to throw my stuff in it. If this is it, I'm ready.
I was sitting there. This is like 3-4 months ago, and I was Jared and Jones are my afternoon news partner. We had a few minutes, and I said, "Oh, let me show you another trick to have." So I pulled a couple garbage bags out of my knapsack. This is what these are for. You double bag it, and see that drawer? That's all my stuff. You throw it in there. So if anything happens to me, I can be gone at a moment's notice.
That's right.
I think it's funny. There's this saying when you've been in radio for a while that you've not actually been in radio until you've been fired.
Yes.
I've never been fired. And Melissa, it sounds like you haven't either.
Knock on wood,
yeah,
wherever
let's
we
find
can
some of
find
these
it.
chairs.
Yeah,
We'll
here
find
we
some.
go.
Yeah,
Here
well,
we go.
guess who
Knock on wood.
has?
and I think a lot of that is because there used to be more jobs and there were more opportunities to move from market to market and learn
Yes.
and develop talent and be developed by different program directors. Is that there's really not a lot of opportunities like that now. And so I learned early on that the more skills I could figure out within the building,
Yes.
the more ways I could be useful, the better opportunity it was that I was not going to be on that chopping block.
That's true.
And so I asked a lot of questions
Yes.
too. I've probably always been the annoying, curious person in the building. I was about to say kid, but I'm not the kid in
No.
the building anymore. But
You were never annoying ever.
well, thank you. But I had a lot of questions.
Well, but that's okay. And you know what, Melissa? I bet you remember at a time there was like 8 or 9 outlets in this market if you needed a
Yeah.
gig. At least when I
Maybe
was
not 20 years ago, a little bit
I
before
was here
though,
in
because
80
you and I started about the
when
same
I landed
time.
here
yeah.
in '84. I mean, even though it was Tyler, Longview, Jacksonville, 96X was in Kilgore, 95.3 was in Gilmer, and even now, I mean.
Chuck, I think you're looking at more like 30, 35 years
Yeah.
ago, unfortunately. I hate to say it. I mean, I want to think that 1980 was 20 years ago too,
Coffee.
but it wasn't. Unfortunately, we're looking at 40 now.
It's not a dig, Chuck.
It's not a dig. I'm experiencing it
We're
too.
fact checking.
Yeah, just a
Sometimes you
little
ask
bit.
too many questions. I think you're too opinion.
Well done. Well done.
Touche.
But at one time there was 9 back in a radio galaxy a long time ago.
Do you know, I actually used to work in the building before I got hired at KTBB. I worked on the second floor at the insurance company that
you?
used to be there. Yes.
Okay.
And I did get fired from that job. So it's not that I haven't been fired from jobs before. I think leading up to KTBB, I've been fired from every job. But this, I just happened to maybe,
You found your fit.
I found my fit.
Yeah.
I was demoted twice in 1 hour.
Oh,
I was in Charleston,
don't
West
be a
Virginia.
one-upper, Chuck. Come
Yeah.
on.
Charleston, West Virginia, 1987. I had moved there. Rosie and I were engaged, but I moved out of market. But I learned a valuable lesson. Never get hired by somebody who's not in the market. I was hired by a regional program director locally. So when I got there, it wasn't the warmest reception, and my confidence level was different, and it was just really bloody. I don't know how I even was there. I think maybe 4 or 5 months, but yeah, it was, I went from middays to nights to weekends and it was the most soul sucking thing ever. Come in Monday through Friday, and remember Paul Harvey?
Yes.
Edit the commercials off Paul Harvey and go home. It was
Wow.
And it was the only time ever that I talked to a person who owned a group of radio stations and told him to do something totally unsexy to himself. It was just, we were having an argument on something, and he
Wow.
called me a little SOB, and I said, blah, blah, blah. And finally, the sales manager came to me. It was about a couple months later. I remember middle of winter. It was just horrible. And he said, what's it going to take? And I said, why do you carry? Because this has gone on way too long. And so I ended up back in Minnesota with the first station I worked at back in 1977. This was in like 89.
This is the Afro Chuck.
Afro Chuck.
Okay.
Well, no. This would be 2 years after. Afro Chuck Well, it was short-lived. I'd met Rosanna, and she said to me, "You know what? I think you should get a permanent." And you know what?
Wait. Did I not know this
Have
story?
you seen pictures of Chuck back in the day?
I mean, I have, but I didn't. I just sort of assumed it was natural.
Well, I don't think we. Well,
You got a perm?
you know what?
Chuck.
There's certain things in life that we live with. The shame is too much.
I think women have too much power. I really do. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but,
I was
forcing a man to get a perm is pretty powerful. you have
Back
to
in my
admit.
Milwaukee days, it was like I had the big foo, hair down to my shoulders.
You had the shirt unbuttoned, the gold chain. Okay, were we revealing too much?
Almost.
Okay, I'm just trying to paint a picture.
Back in the late 70s, it was. Remember when there was?
This is the photo you're referring to, Melissa. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's another one though. It seems like you're in a white button-down
Yes,
shirt.
that was.
Okay.
I was with singer Shelley West. She made an appearance in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Or as
Chuck.
Milwaukee people would say,
You gotta share the
Milwaukee.
goods so
You
I
don't
can put
pronounce-
these
You
on-
don't pronounce the L.
Our audience wants to see. You've got to
true.
share these photos with me so that I can actually, initiate our social media presence.
Oh, there's ways to initiate people, and that's just not. And that's not one of them.
You should be proud, Chuck. I think it's a really iconic picture.
It's great.
Well, I always like to say too, and there's sometimes I'll say when we're talking about something, and I'll say, as your well-traveled fullback in this league, which is a nice way of saying I've been around, and sometimes, and I'll say, well, maybe there's another viewpoint on something.
True.
Just
But you both have been around for a really long time, and when
Yeah.
I was on my way here thinking about this, you guys are the vets, and I feel like the rookie here. So
No.
I do. Well, I'm just saying, you've got all the experience, and you've been around the block,
Yeah.
a couple hundred times,
Sure.
whatever block, up north, south, west, who knows?
I've got my arm in a sling. I'm injured.
Yeah.
I tried ladies and gentlemen, I tried the rock twofer on a personal level, which is 2 legs and 1 pant hole, and the results were disastrous. So I have a sling on my shoulder. So that's
So
it.
public service announcement.
Yes.
That's a bad idea.
Don't
Yeah,
do
it's a
it. Don't
bad
try
idea.
this at home.
Yeah. If Chuck says it's a bad idea, trust me, it is a bad damn idea.
Okay.
But one of the things that rubs me the wrong way, and every time I hear it, it'll be people screaming about the news media, negative stuff about it. And I always try to say to friends or family that talk about that, I go, well, you have to understand something. That's super duper big companies that have learned, well, we have to monetize it. And it's also the opinion page of that. I always like to say on a local level, whether it's news, whether it's our TV brothers and sisters, our newspaper brothers and sisters, we're just like you. We are out there working hard every day to put a product, and when I say product, it's not like a negative, but putting something on the air that's balanced and, reflects, hopefully, East Texas.
And you want it to be interesting because you want listeners to not be bored while they're listening to you, right? I mean,
Yes.
you don't want them to change the channel mid-sentence. We want to keep the listeners intrigued. So that's a little challenging some days when the news doesn't deliver, if you know what I mean.
I know. I mean,
Yes.
there are times I'll sit there and try to write the lead in and go, well, what do we have here? And, is this going to make sense? And
That's okay, Chuck. You can't win them all, can you?
but you'd like to.
You want to. Your goal is to.
As a record rep once told me, Jay Jensen, I'm talking to you. And Jay and I had a contentious relationship. I said, you want me to play everything from Liberty Records and in hot rotation? I do. Damn right, Chuck. And I go, all right, fine. You want to be right all the time. One of the things that I find fascinating about performers, and I used to listen to Mark Maron a lot
Yes.
in the mornings when I'd work out. And one of the things and it doesn't matter how successful the performer is, in the back of them, they're all pretty a little insecure.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we all care what other people think, or we
Sure.
wouldn't be putting ourselves in the public eye or ears.
My favorite quote is Timothy Oliphant saying to Conan, he said, please understand, underneath the secure thing that you're looking at, I'm just as psycho as anybody else. And I thought,
Yeah.
Tim,
That's
you're
relatable.
talking to me.
Yeah, that's relatable.
You are talking to me. One of the things that you could think that could make or break, not even a radio station, but business in general, is, you have it to where you have things happen. And in our case at KTBB, we've had in a 2-year period, we had a 2-year period where we had, 2 of our regular employees on air pass.
Yes.
And it's Paul Berry died, our operations manager, and was it 2 years or a year later that John Sims died, or more? Or he was my broadcast partner. I think about a year and a half, maybe.
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. It was a short time. It was not long at all. Paul Berry. I've known Paul Berry since I got in the business. I started, almost 20 years ago, and he was always at the station, and he was on the air in different aspects of, that's back when we had KDOK on the air.
Yes, KDOK.
KDOK. We had KDOK on the air. We were doing keys as well, and we just, we always got along, Paul Berry and I, but we were just kind of passing shifts. When you work the early morning shift,
yes.
Good or bad, you're kind of just a passing ship to a lot of other people that work maybe more normal hours. But Paul Berry, I can remember Daff had sent me a text and had told me that Paul Berry had collapsed and had passed away while he was at the station. And so that was really shocking. I'd never experienced anything quite like that before. But then fast forward about a year and a half later, and John Sims didn't show up for work, and he always he's the clock that you can count on. And when he didn't, a couple of people went over to his house, couldn't find him, and then we received information from the police that he had been struck by a car, and then we received a police report, just a regular press report that they would send out for anyone, and they didn't identify him, but we had known at that time, and John was in the hospital, and that was real shocking, and we had no idea how severe it was, but it turned out he didn't make it, and he was a major part of the station. He had been there since I had been there, and other stations. He was a long-time guy in the business, John was, and everybody knew John.
Didn't they say, I think 45 years?
I think about that, yes.
43 in the market, and I think he just celebrated his 25th.
Yeah, at the station.
It was so, he had just had, because didn't he have a bout with cancer maybe like 5-10 years earlier?
I believe he had prostate cancer, yes.
Prostate cancer. He had just gotten his cataracts done.
Yeah.
So it was the first time that a lot of us had seen John without glasses.
Right.
So this transpires on I think a Tuesday. Was it a Tuesday? I believe a Tuesday. And so the day before on a Monday, when John and I would work together, this is so different because I work with Roger Gray now, and we have a fair amount of interplay where when John and I would work together, John would be working local stories and making calls. It wasn't unusual at all for us not to talk at all for 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
At all. And so John is sitting there, and I forget what it is. He's cracking wise about something, and, the big mustache is big, broad. He lets out this belly laugh, and I'm sitting there typing a lead in for something, and I look, and I laugh, and in the back of my mind, I goes, he's joking. What's that about?
Dear diary, today John Sims smiled.
And that's one of those things that, you talk about John bringing it. We'll probably have, I think on the average, he'd probably have 1 or 2 stories where he would, make calls, talk to people, develop sound, develop those contacts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And John was another guy, another person, just like yourself. I would watch him, whether it was on the air, and particularly web, man, because I was terrified of doing web work. Terrified.
I can attest to that.
Yes.
When we worked together at KKUS.
That was my strong point.
And Mandee said, one of the first, can I do the web for you? Yes. Yes, you can. And what I didn't find out until recently, it was the same platform as what we had, WordPress.
Yes.
And WordPress is, once you get used to it, it's easy. But
if you make a mistake, though, no mercy. Do you remember when we were doing headlines on a billboard? We had billboards around town, and we would type up headlines. Were you part of that?
No, that's
Talk
cool,
about
though.
growing up in public. If you make a mistake on a billboard, everybody's going to hear about it. And it's a fast-paced kind of newsroom.
Yes.
We're in a hurry, and we
Yeah.
don't always get it right. And that was a disaster waiting to happen.
It sounds like a memo time right there.
Yes.
So many memos. We need 9 file cabinets for all the memos.
Oh my.
I sat there last week. I don't know if you remember this. This is maybe a good year and a half ago. You'd put together a packet of memos on the web for all of us.
Yes.
And I was going through my I have a couple folders that I use for my daily stuff. One of them is just, assorted memos, and then there's something that I have like a crib sheet for on air that's just, it's like 10 seconds. If I need 10 seconds to talk about, that's that, and a few other things. But yeah, I found this packet. I was reading and I go, yeah, I need to watch this. I need to watch this. I need to watch that. So I have it at home. I go, yeah, I definitely need to dig this out. And
you know what I've discovered about memos is the people who read the memos are not who the memo is intended for. It's always the people who just like crumple it, throw it away.
But in that case, though, I mean, what I liked about it, because the majority of it consisted of, well, this is what it says. This is what it should be. I can't tell. And I'm the guy on the weekend that would sit there and say, well, do I need a hyphen on this Google? And then start looking, to make sure, it gets right. Because like you said, and it's been pointed out that, you can flub on the air and flub on the web. It's the same thing.
Right.
Exactly the same thing. But I've gotten to where I used to get really nervous about the whole thing to where, I embraced what it is, which is, the 4:00 wake up call with my dog on a Saturday. He eats, I get on the web, he goes back to sleep, and we wait till a couple hours later, and, we go to the park, and everybody gets what they want. Station gets their web done, he gets their walk. Eventually, I get my nap.
I've decided that I'm just not going to beat myself up over the mistakes I make. I mean, yes, we're all trying not to make mistakes, but I have just spent my entire life internalizing every single thing that I've ever done wrong. So I'll wake up in the morning with a list of things that I just need to marinate on about how much, I hate myself. This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this, blah, 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 blah. And so at some point I've started a new mantra when I wake up, and it just doesn't matter. It just,
doesn't matter.
Call me Bill Murray or whatever you want, but
that's Stripes, right?
It is.
Yeah,
yes.
we go. Thank you.
A little throwback for you there. But honestly, I mean, we're all just trying to like keep this boat afloat, aren't we?
Keep, as Mr. Blythe would say, keep the oars in the water.
That's right.
I think the other thing too that was kind of heartening and kind of spooky. So, Paul Berry passes, and when John Sims passes, it was literally like you could hear the click, and everybody dug in and went to work. Not that we didn't work hard or anything, but it was kind of like, well, we recognize what this situation is, and we have to step up our game even more to make sure that nobody knows that there's a different situation.
Right. Yeah, we were all in triage, yeah.
But nobody talked. It's like nobody talked about it. We just did our job, but
it sounds like you operate well as a team. I mean, from an outside perspective, just observing and listening to what you guys are saying, it sounds like
we do news meeting once a day.
Yeah,
and it's at 10:00, and Melissa moderates and tells us, "Well, you're saying, what sound that's developed, what to watch for. Does Texas State Network have, pros and cons? Because, there's things that I can use, but I also go." Well, I can't use this, or I'll look at what you have and cross-reference and go, oh, she used it here, I can use it here, but I can't use this here because she used it here. So,
I think the beauty of this I get off the air at 10:06. I'm going home. And this is what time our meeting starts. And if I'm going to be in charge of the meeting, it's going to be about a minute long. And so here we go. Okay.
Brevity.
Here's what's happening here, and you guys can figure out the rest. And we're all vets. We know what's going on. Come on now. Yeah.
And I kind of try to follow your lead on one thing. And I think I guess about a year and a half ago, I looked in the mirror and I said, look, because as far as internalizing, I do.
Yeah, I know you do.
And I can. And it's just don't drive yourself crazy. Mm-hmm. If you make a mistake, correct it. And the other thing that I have in my head is, and I have this thing that's been there forever, which is if you know something's going to happen and you can correct it, do it. But if it's already blown up, there's nothing you can do.
You're right. You're right.
And that's the only thing, because I just take things way too.
Well, and you also, not you, I think a lot of us, the voices in your head, when you do something wrong, that voice gets so loud that it starts to interrupt your current situation. And so I'm so worried about messing up that I am destined to mess up. Like, I just forgot how to read. What happened here?
It's like it's like a sports analogy. Like when you watch golf, you can see it happen.
Absolutely.
Putting.
I mean, yeah, all of us, I mean, they're doing great, and then they make one mistake.
Yes.
And then there's another. And then there's another. And the next thing you know, they're spiraling out of control. It's humans.
It's the car crash in slow motion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it can happen on the air if you're not careful. I know when Dave Moreland was in, he talked about he had his newscaster name. He would write it down every day and put it there so that in case his brain just stopped working, he had, and now I can't remember his name. Whoever he would say, and now with the news, it's so-and-so. Because you forget. I mean, you never know. Your brain can just go left.
No, absolutely. And not to mention you're spinning so many plates that this plate drops and then it's like, where are these other, there's way too much going on at all times.
Do you have people say this to you, Melissa? I could do your job.
I don't, because I'm kind of intimidating in person. They might call me and tell me that. No, I'm teasing. I don't. Of course, but I'm not out talking about my job though. I leave it at work. This is the first time I've talked about my job. You know, my husband doesn't want to hear about it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, people ask, how's the job going? Why do you get up so early? Why do you have to get up so early what time do you go on the air? Why do you get up so early? I'm like, you just really have no idea. And they wouldn't, even if I did explain it to them. So it's fine. It's okay. It's my deal.
You say, why do you get up so early? Precisely.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
When I first started, someone said, oh, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to getting, you never get used to getting up.
What time do you wake up?
By Thursday, her and Jeff you could see their insides are screaming.
We are, and we're just like kind of walking around like zombies. But okay, so now I have perfected the craft because I do wear makeup every day. Yeah. You guys, just as a favor to the public, I will always have makeup on. So I get up about 2:30.
Yeah.
And I try to be at work by 4. I should get there earlier, but I don't. But I still get it done, you know.
And you go on live when?
We go on live at 6.
Okay, so 2 hours of prep is still quite a bit of time.
And I do a lot of prep in that time.
Yeah.
But then there's sometimes
you can do prep while you're doing makeup. I'm sorry, but women can multitask.
I won't leave the house without makeup on. I just can't. I did it one time and someone said, are you sick?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I get that too.
No, Mom, I'm not sick. You know me. You've seen me when I'm sick.
I found that the last time and I think I've only had to do mornings 3 days in the past year. So I found out that for me at least, if I could do things at home, like I would do my sports cast at home, and I think on News Boss, or the way that we deliver the news, I figured out that I could sit there and export all of their scripts and then fill in the blanks again, drop them, and it works great. So, and I do that to where it just, because before I was coming in way too early.
You were, yeah. You'd been there by maybe 3 hours by the time I was rolling in to do the morning show. And I thought but I used to do that too, though. I mean, because you don't know. And we try to like accommodate for things that are going to happen when you have no idea what's going to happen. Is the internet going to work today? Is the news boss going to go out today? Is WordPress going to happen?
Is Texas State News Network going to crap on us?
Right.
You know,
because technology sometimes does just stop working in the middle of a broadcast. It's happened to me a few times.
And there's not like a program that you can put on, you know, when that happens. You still have to do your job and go on the air. And what are you going to talk about?
Right.
I forget who said it. I don't know if it was Murray. I don't know who said it. And the engineer, maybe it was Steve, that has said, you know, in the old days, if something died, you know, oh my goodness, coffee's talking to me. If something dies in the old days, you were replacing a tape machine, you're replacing this. Well, now you have a box that's like, you know, it's like an inch thick, it's 12 inches wide, and if it goes out, you are paralyzed.
Yeah.
It's like our control board is digital, so you have that.
Is there anything that gets your adrenaline going more than knowing that something has completely zapped out and now you're just, it's up to you, Chuck. Make it happen. Where's that magic?
We were sitting there, I guess, a couple of months ago, and it was one of those days where we didn't have like a tornado warning, but it was pitch black out. It was, lights were blinking, and I literally was going, all right, come on, just let's get this over with. Yeah. Just get the kill shot done. And it didn't. We limped through the night, and everything cleared up. I think literally at about, 6:15. It was one of those almost pop-up storms, but yeah, when there's and for me, I'm not handy with that stuff. You know, if all of a sudden the sound is off, I'm like, please, is Daffod around there?
Yeah.
Can I call Wesley?
Yeah.
Marconi, can somebody help me?
Can we just set the building on fire? That's always my go-to. Let's just burn this place down. Stapler.
Well, but if there's been a few times during the day, it'd be like 9 a.m. I think it was a couple of months ago where you and Daffod were looking outside because the lights were blinking, you go, hey, did that drunk hit a pole again?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we've had some situations happen at the station that we just kind of have to work through.
And that's what you learn. It's that.
Winter Storm Uri, remember that? And we all got to cruise up to the station. John slept at the station.
Yes.
That was never good to walk in and see someone's pants draped over the chair.
Oh my!
Sleeping in the conference room.
That's dedication.
I tell you, my favorite thing about radio is the personalities that you work with. It's the best ever. You never know, and we're all so quirky.
It is, and I had limited interaction with John because I never worked with you guys over at KTBB. It's like the one outfit I haven't worked for
yet.
Yeah, well,
I've been after her.
He's been after me a bit, and I have so much respect for what you guys do. And I have worked with a lot of people that are there now and kind of in and out over the years. But I used to run into John a lot out in the community.
Yes.
Because I've been actively like a volunteer and would participate at like chamber mixers and stuff. And inevitably, if there was free food somewhere, I would run into John Sims. And I mean that lovingly, but he was probably also getting audio while he was there or making a connection and building a relationship so that he could make a phone call later to develop audio. And I didn't know that about him. But in my conversations with Chuck since he's passed, I really think that he endeared himself to so many organizations in the public because he was the one person that would call and get their message on the air. And I know, if it bleeds, it leads. But from my understanding, John was doing kind of some of the work of like, okay, this is like a human interest story that's happening within the community
100%.
and developing those. And I think that that is a missing piece. And
When
I'm sorry
we
it's
went
gone.
to his service, the folks that spoke were the community, the outreach, he did a lot of good work, and he didn't brag about it.
Right.
We found out a lot of things that we had no idea. What a genuinely good guy he was. We knew he was a good guy at the station, but we didn't know how far. But I mean, the donations, we just learned so much about him, and I hate that he had passed away and we had learned that. I wish we would have treated him better. That's always the case, I guess. I don't know. I wish we would have treated him like the rock star that he was.
I remember there was a few times where I told myself, you know what? I need to get John and go out and have coffee with him. And so
He probably didn't have time for you because he literally was having breakfast with someone every single day. Melissa, I'm going to be late. When I was planning my wedding, I'd have to cover his lunch shift because he's going to have lunch with someone in the community. I mean, what a butterfly.
Yeah.
Social butterfly.
I have so much respect for that because I think that's a hard piece of what we do. And that's a piece of journalism that's missing a lot in general, like all over the country, is people who will go out and find those stories. I mean, and this is not meant to be negative or whatever, but the national headlines are going to get talked about.
Yes.
Right. The state headlines, what's going on in the legislature, policy, those things are going to get talked about. But if there's a nonprofit that's about to go under because they don't have enough money.
Yes.
That might go under the radar unless somebody's out there developing that relationship and having that conversation. And for a journalist to do that, and to do that when he's before work, at breakfast, or at lunch, or after hours because he's mixing and mingling with someone at a chamber mixer, like that's unusual.
It is unusual.
And and I just think it's something that I would like for him to be remembered for that piece of what he did because it's rare.
I agree.
One of the things I think needs to happen, a gentleman online reached out to me and we were talking about possibilities for the Texas Radio Hall of Fame. And I said, a person that you may think about is John Sims. I said, he's done a lot of good work over the years, active in the community. He's been mentor to a lot of people. And I think that, comparatively speaking, he needs to be at least thought about and nominated.
Absolutely.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
Gear.
And the gearheads that use the gear.
And making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.